Good morning, students of grade 10. Today we are going to discuss about energy source of energy, that is fossil fuel. Yesterday we discussed about solar energy. Today we are going to discuss about fossil fuel. And in fossil fuel, it is non-renewable source of energy. Non-renewable means it takes very long time, considerably long time to regenerate. There are limited amount of fossil fuel present on Earth's core. Okay, and once these sources are exhausted, then know that new sources of fossil fuel are still being formed, but it takes millions of years, and definitely we cannot wait that much longer for next batch of fossil fuel to available. Okay, that's why fossil fuel is considered as non-renewable source of energy. Okay, now what do you mean by fossil? The word fossil, it indicates remains of living being, not the living being exactly, but their remains of living beings that existed millions of years ago, or very old animals and plants. Their remains are called fossil. Okay? And fossil can be found in any form, like it could be imprints or impression or solidified rock. Okay? It can be found in any form. We will go through the formation of fossil in detail. Now let us define fossil fuel first. How do you define fossil fuel? Fossil fuels are copied the energy rich materials formed by thermal decomposition of organic materials from fossils. Okay, fossil fuels are the energy rich materials formed by thermal decomposition of organic materials from fossils. Now, examples of fossil fuel, there are basically three categories of fossil fuel. They are called petroleum or mineral oil, and then coal and natural gas. These are three categories of fossil fuel. You are well aware about petroleum or mineral gas. Petroleum includes petrol, diesel, which are used to run vehicles and generators. Similarly, kerosene is used in household to cook food, and aerofuel is used for flying airplanes. Okay, and LPG or liquefied petroleum gas, which comes in cylinder and we use it at our home to cook food, and it is also used for running vehicles as well. Coal, you know that coal is rock-like black substance which burns, producing very high amount of heat. Coal is used in thermal generator, means it is used for generating electricity in thermal power plant. Natural gas, it is compressed to form CNG. It is compressed to form CNG, compressed natural gas, which is filled in cylinder, and CNG is also widely used for running light vehicles. Now, why is petroleum and coal, they are called fossil fuel? Petroleum and coal are called fossil fuels because they are formed from the remains of ancient organisms. Petroleum is formed from ancient marine organisms from the time Devonian or Mississippian and Pennsylvanian period, which took place around 300 to 400 million years ago. And coal is formed from remains of ancient tree ferns, which grew on vast marshlands from Carboniferous period, that also counted 300 to 350 million years ago. That's why petroleum and coal are considered as fossil fuel. So there are basically two reasons. First one is they are formed from fossil remains of living beings which lived millions of years ago. Okay, and second one, it take millions of years to form. That means it does not regenerate over short period of time. That's why fossil fuels are considered as non-renewable source of energy. Now come to let's discuss about petroleum. Petroleum, it includes petrol, diesel, kerosene, LPG, wax. Okay, now petroleum is defined as dark brown / black viscous liquid. Viscous means very thick liquid. Okay, viscous liquid which is found underground. It is formed by thermal decomposition of organic materials, and it takes millions of years to form. Now, how is petroleum formed? Have you ever wondered about that? Have you ever tried to search this question? How is petroleum formed? Okay, we all have utilized petroleum. Okay? We all have utilized petroleum in several manner, in several form, for several purpose, but we have never searched for how it is formed. Okay, today we are going to discuss how petroleum is formed. Okay, there are two steps in formation of petroleum. Okay, steps in petroleum formation. Step 1, diagenesis, and step 2, catagenesis. Okay, step 1, diagenesis, it is linked with metabolism or decomposition. Okay, decomposition of soft parts. Okay, whereas catagenesis, it is related to thermal decomposition. This is diagenesis is related to organic decomposition. That means decomposition by algae, decomposition by fungi and bacteria. Whereas catagenesis, it occurs due to thermal decomposition. Now, diagenesis occurs when the sediment is less than 1 meter thick, whereas catagenesis occurs when the sediment reaches over 1 kilometer thick. Now, what happens? Let's see. In diagenesis, let's discuss diagenesis first. Ocean contains large number of microscopic organisms and other lower invertebrates. I'm talking about 300 to 400 million years ago. Okay, 300 to 400 million years ago, ocean was filled with small animals or small organisms and lower invertebrates, which are often called zooplanktons. Zooplanktons. Planktons means very small organism, and zoo means animal that can move. Zooplanktons, and similarly algae were also present. Okay, algae means these are plants, microscopic plants, which are also found in ocean water. Okay, similarly other living beings, lower invertebrates were also present in ocean. Lower invertebrates, when they die, that they settle down to bottom of ocean. They settle down to bottom of ocean. Okay, and what happens once they are settled down to bottom of ocean? And you know that river brings over large amount of sediments. Sediments means, what do you mean by sediment? Sediment means sand, clay, soil, etc. River brings large amount of sediments, and these sediments keep on covering. Sediments cover them. Sediments keep on covering them, and when sediment reaches approximately 1 meter thick, sediments reaches 1 meter thick, then what happens? Anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic means those bacteria that do not require oxygen. Those bacteria that do not require oxygen for respiration are called anaerobic bacteria. Anaerobic bacteria decompose carbohydrates and proteins. Okay, living beings are made up of carbohydrate, protein, and lipid, fat and oil. But these anaerobic bacteria, they can decompose only carbohydrate and proteins. However, they cannot decompose. They do not decompose fat, oil, and wax. Okay, they do not decompose fat, oil, and wax. And this non-decomposed fat, oil, and wax, they keep on accumulating to form vast amount of substance called kerosene. Okay, this ends the process of diagenesis. Diagenesis involves organic decomposition. Okay, as I already told you, diagenesis involves organic decomposition, whereas catagenesis involves thermal decomposition. Once again, let's revise the process. In diagenesis process, what happens? 300 to 400 million years ago, small living organisms such as zooplanktons, algae, and lower invertebrates filled the ocean. When they die, they settle down to bottom of ocean. Okay, and these dead materials, these organic materials, are covered by sediments. Sediments comprises of sand, clay, soil, etc., which are brought by river. Okay, rivers bring sediment, which are brought by rivers, and these sediments, they cover the organic materials. Okay, when sediment reaches around 1 meter thick, okay, then in such that oxygen is not present. Oxygen cannot diffuse beyond 1 meter of thickness. Okay, so when sediment reaches 1 meter thick, anaerobic bacteria start to decompose carbohydrates and protein. Anaerobic bacteria decompose carbohydrate and protein. However, these bacteria cannot decompose fat, oil, and wax. Remember, to decompose fat, oil, and wax, you always need oxygen. They can be decomposed only by aerobic bacteria. Okay, so these anaerobic bacteria, they cannot decompose fat, oil, and wax. So these residual fat, oil, and wax, they form a vast deposit which is known as kerosene. Okay, now next process, number 2, is catagenesis. Catagenesis is the process of thermal decomposition. Okay, it is a process of thermal decomposition. Now let's begin with kerosene. We have already discussed how kerosene is formed. Okay, kerosene contains vast amount of fat, oil, and wax, which could not be decomposed by anaerobic bacteria. Now this kerosene, when the sediment reaches, this kerosene remain inactive. Actually, they remain unchanged. Okay, they remain inactive. There is no change in kerosene for a large amount of time. But when sediment reaches over 50 kilometer thick, 50 kilometer, it's just very deep, isn't it? Okay, when sediment, not 50 kilometer, sorry, 1 kilometer. When sediment reaches 1 kilometer thick, that means 1000 meter thick, then it creates very high pressure. Okay, sediment creates very high pressure, and that pressure gradually increases the temperature of kerosene. Okay, increases temperature of kerosene up to 50 degree Celsius, and at such temperature, at 50 degree Celsius, thermal decomposition starts to take place. Thermal decomposition is the chemical process, and along with thermal decomposition, molecular rearrangement also take place. That means molecules of kerosene, they start to rearrange and form new kind of substances, and these new kind of substances form petroleum. Okay, in this way petroleum is formed. Okay, so there are two steps in formation of petroleum. One we have already discussed, diagenesis, in which anaerobic decomposition occurs of carbohydrate and protein, whereas fat and oil do not decompose by anaerobic process. Okay, we have discussed that in earlier. Okay, fat and oil, they do not decompose by anaerobic process, and the vast deposit of fat, oil and wax form kerosene. And for a very long time period, kerosene remains inactive. It does not undergo any kind of change, but as sediment keeps on accumulating, okay, and as sediment reaches over 1 kilometer thick, then it creates very high pressure, and at high pressure the temperature rises up to 50 degrees Celsius. Okay, and under such high pressure and temperature, thermal decomposition and molecular rearrangement occurs in kerosene. It also takes millions of years. It is very slow process. Okay, this is very slow process. In this process, new kind of substances are formed, which are called petroleum. Now let's discuss another topic, coal. Formation of coal. Okay, there are different types of coal based on their quality. Yes, based on their quality, there are different types of coal. The best quality of coal is called anthracite, whereas the worst quality of coal is called lignite. The best quality of coal is called anthracite, and the lowest quality of coal is called lignite. Then, and now between anthracite and lignite, there are other coals which are called bituminous coal or subbituminous coal. Okay, the best one being anthracite and the lowest one being lignite, and between anthracite and lignite there are bituminous coal and subbituminous coal. So you can categorize coal into 4 different categories. Okay, anthracite, bituminous, subbituminous and lignite. Now how is coal formed? Formation of coal. Let's discuss formation of coal. This is also very important part of the lesson. Formation of petroleum and formation of coal are very important part of lesson. You know, Carboniferous period, it occurs around 300 million years ago on Earth. Around 300 million years ago, in Carboniferous period, animals still were not developed on land. Animals were still confined in ocean, and on land only plants were present. Again, Carboniferous period, only plants were present, and among plants also, as you know, angiosperm and gymnosperm. Yes, you know angiosperm and gymnosperm. Among plants also, angiosperm were not yet developed, only gymnosperms were present. This is such a long time. Yes, even angiosperm were not developed, only gymnosperm were present on land. Okay, and the land was full of marshes. You know what is marshes? Daldal bhumi. Okay, land was full of marshes. See, I am talking about Carboniferous period, at which time animals were not developed on land. Animals were confined to ocean, and on land only plants were present. Okay, and among plants also, angiosperms were not yet developed, only gymnosperms were present, and the land was full of marshes. There was no solid land. And gymnosperm means, gymnosperm, the major plants in the category gymnosperm, class gymnosperm, are fern. Okay, and smaller form we have seen in our surrounding even today, but at that time ferns developed to large structures called tree fern. Okay, fern and tree fern were the major plants present on marshy land during the time of Carboniferous period. Now what happens? Due to certain disaster, all plants fell down. Yes, plants means tree fern. They fell down. And what happens when they fell down? Obviously, they lie deep in marshes. Okay. Okay. As sediment, once again here also, sediments keep on covering. And when sediments reaches very thick, okay, thick layer of sediment, pressure and temperature both rises. Okay, temperature and pressure rises. We have discussed this in petroleum as well. Pressure and temperature rises. Then at such high pressure and temperature, cellulose, which is present in cell wall of plant, they start to undergo thermal decomposition. And because of thermal decomposition of cellulosic materials, it forms coal. Other than cellulose, like a plant cell contains other materials as well. These materials, they are likely to decompose at this stage. Okay, when in marshes anaerobic bacteria are present, these anaerobic bacteria, they decompose other cell materials like carbohydrate and proteins. But once again, cellulose cannot be decomposed. Okay, and then these cellulosic materials, they are covered by sediments. Sediment keep on increasing. When thick layer of sediment occurs, then temperature and pressure rises. At such high temperature and pressure, the cellulosic materials undergo thermal decomposition, and finally it forms coal. Okay, so formation of coal starts from Carboniferous period. Now, as I have checked several papers, what students are likely to make mistake is when they are asked how coal is formed, they are likely to say, and millions of years ago, plants and animals. Okay, notice this: plants and animals were covered by sediments. Now, whenever I see the word animal here, I'd likely to cross the answer. I won't read further because, as I have already told you, during the time of Carboniferous period, there were no animals on land. So there are no animal residues found in coal. Animals do not take part in formation of coal. Okay, so that's about formation of coal and petroleum. Now let's go to uses of coal and petroleum. First of all, and petroleum. First of all, they are used in a thermal power plant. Thermal power plant generates electricity. Okay, thermal power plants generate electricity, but they do not use water to rotate turbine. They use steam power to rotate turbine, and to generate steam they burn coal and petroleum. Okay, to generate steam they burn coal and petroleum, and that steam is forcefully passed through turbine that rotates the turbine. Another one is to run steam engine. Or steam engine means old rails, old railways, okay, and vehicles, aeroplanes, etc. And to run industrial machines, to heat water in industries, and used as raw materials in chemical industry. One particular example is, plastic. How are plastics produced? Okay, what are the raw materials of plastic? Let me tell you, raw material of plastic is petroleum products. Okay, not just plastic, the industrial alcohol, okay, ether, and many other materials are also produced from coal and petroleum. Now let's discuss next one, the reason of extensive use of fossil fuel. You know that in present world, 80% of energy demand, we have discussed in energy crisis topic, 80% of energy demand is met by fossil fuel. Why is this? The reasons are, first of all, most of the technology were developed to be run by fossil fuel. Most of the technologies were developed to be run by fossil fuel. And another reason is industrial revolution. Industrial revolution. Do you know industrial revolution? The time period when large number of industries were established, when human civilization moved from agricultural time period to industrial time period. And industrial revolution was based on it. That means during industrial revolution, that was the time when fossil fuel was discovered. Before industrial revolution, whale oil, the oil present underneath the skin of whale, was used as fuel. Okay, but supply of whale oil was very much limited. That's why industrial revolution could not take place. But as fossil fuel was discovered, fossil fuel was present at that time at very large amount, and many industrial machines were developed to be run by fossil fuel. And since fossil fuel was obtained in larger quantity than whale oil, those machines could be run extensively, and that causes industrial revolution. That's why most of the machines are operated by using fossil fuel, and that increases our dependency on fossil fuel. And another common reason of using fossil fuel is it is very easy to transport. Easy to transport. You can fill it in tankers and transport it to very long distances. Whereas let's think about electricity. How do you transport electricity produced in Nepal to America? Of course, you will need extensive wire network. Okay, extensive wire network which runs from Nepal to America, and that is just not possible. But if Nepal produces petroleum, that can easily be transported to America by fill it in tankers. Okay, transport it to seaport and then fill it in ship tankers or oil tankers. Then through the ship you can take it easily to America. See, it is very easy to transport, unlike other forms of energy. And it is cheaper than other sources. Okay, cheaper than other sources of energy, because processing of petroleum is cheaper. It requires it does not require very high technology. Okay, it uses fractional distillation. But using hydroelectricity, let's say, it requires sophisticated technology. comparatively, fossil fuels are cheaper than any other fuels, and another reason is high thermal efficiency. That means it produces very it can produce very high temperature. It can generate more power than other fuels, and that could be the reason why heavy trucks are operated on diesel. Okay, heavy trucks are operated on diesel, but it is yet not so much possible to operate heavy trucks on electricity. Maybe future technologies might develop it. Okay, and next topic is our restriction of uses of petroleum. Definitely, petroleum or fossil fuel, it is non-renewable source of energy. Okay, non-renewable means it takes very long time to regenerate. It is non-renewable source of energy. Okay, so we must restrict use of petroleum. Okay, we must restrict use of petroleum so that even if petroleum is exhausted, we do not catch up into energy crisis. And for that purpose, what our government is doing, number one is discouraging haphazard means unnecessary use of petroleum by increasing tax and cost. The first one, discouraging haphazard use of petroleum by increasing tax and cost. And another one is development of alternating sources of energy, such as wind power, hydroelectricity, okay, and other forms of energy. In case of Nepal, solar energy and hydroelectricity are major form of alternating sources of energy. Now, why government wants to restrict the uses of petroleum? Why does the Nepal government want to restrict uses of petroleum? First reason is it releases greenhouse gases. The first reason is it releases greenhouse gases, and you know that greenhouse causes global warming. And what global warming can cause, you have studied that in detail in grade 9. I hope you remember it. And another cause is foreign currency depletion in foreign currency reserve. So our country does not have its own source of petroleum. No own source of petroleum. That means what we have to do, we have to import from other nations. Okay, import from other nations. Now, when we import petroleum from other nations, how do we pay? Can we pay them in Nepalese currency? Because if yes, our bank can print large amount of Nepalese currency. If yes, but no, we cannot pay them in terms of Nepalese currency. What we need to do, we need to pay them with foreign currency like dollar or Indian rupees. If we are buying it from India, we need to pay it in Indian rupees. If we are buying it from Arab, Qatar and other nations, or China, we need to pay them in terms of dollar. Okay, we have limited foreign currencies, limited dollar resources. Okay, and most of the dollar comes from remittance, and small amount of dollar comes from tourism. Now, if most of these foreign currency are used to buy petroleum, means we are lacking the opportunity to buy other stuff from foreign, such as medical equipments, which are essential. Okay, so we need foreign currency reserve to run the country, to run the international trade. Okay, and that currency is used in importing of petroleum. So to reduce the importing of petroleum from other nations and to increase foreign currency reserve, our government plans to increase the development and utilization of hydropower or hydroelectricity. Okay, for hydroelectricity, the equipment needed also need to be imported from other nations, but that would be one-time importation. Okay, one-time import, and then after it can be produced for at least 20 years. Okay, so hydroelectricity in long sum saves lots of foreign currency reserve. Okay, that is all about fossil fuel. I have posted some questions in your group, so go and check your group, messenger group, for the homework. I need all the homeworks been submitted in messenger as personal message, and after the lockdown I want you all to submit the homework in written form in copy as well. This was for today. Thank you.